I took over my grandma's shrine, dedicated to worshipping the Fox Immortal. After a five-star hotel discovered a male corpse in a gruesome state, rumors of it being haunted began to spread. The hotel owner invited me to stand guard overnight to catch the ghosts, but these ghosts hadn't died at the hotel. There was the baby spirit, abandoned in a public restroom immediately after birth. The wife who went out with a knife to catch her husband cheating, but was killed by his lover instead. The girl who went missing while jogging at night, only to be found 3 days later naked at a construction site. But the most terrifying thing was when I discovered that the person who invited me to catch the ghosts had actually been dead for a long time. I took over my grandma's shrine, becoming a spirit medium, but was constantly entangled by the impudent fox spirit worshipped there, Hu Yunshan. Recently, he heard somewhere that the Jin Ye Hotel had water beds, round beds, even massage chairs with speed control, plus all sorts of toys. He kept pestering me to rent a super suite there and take him to broaden his horizons. Without those things, he already tormented me so much that I couldn't sleep all night, my bones aching. With those additions, I was sure to lose half my life. I flatly refused. His fluffy fox tail swished back and forth over me, wrapping and caressing, making my whole body soft and itchy. When I was tormented to tears and begged him to stop, he then suggested I take him there for a different life experience. Finally, I was so annoyed I kicked the indecent fox spirit right off the bed. Unexpectedly, 3 days later, the general manager of the Jin Ye Hotel came to me. He said Master Bai had referred me and wanted to invite me to the hotel for a consultation, even bringing Master Bai's token. I owed Master Bai a favor, and seeing his token, I couldn't refuse. The Jin Ye Hotel was a famous 5-star hotel in the city, considered an iconic architectural landmark in the area. The person who invited me was General Manager Jin Chengguang. Half a month prior, in an unoccupied hotel room, staff discovered a corpse. That room was at the end of the hallway. We usually don't rent such rooms unless the hotel is extremely full. There had been no guests for 2 days prior, so we hadn't checked it. That day, the hotel was overbooked, and when they opened the room, they found the dead man. General Manager Jin recounted, his face still showing shock and fear. He showed me photos of the crime scene. It was truly horrific, unbearable to look at. The room at the end of the hallway was a blind spot, where qi didn't circulate well, making it easy for filth to accumulate and negative energy to grow. Sometimes, hotel guests might inadvertently bring non-human entities with them. Once lost and unable to leave, these entities instinctively hide in places with heavy negative energy, accumulating over time and easily attracting unclean things. Therefore, when staying at a hotel, it's best to avoid rooms at the end of the hallway. The crime scene photos were extremely chaotic. The deceased was completely naked, his hands cuffed to the bedside wall lamp in a prone, twisted position. His eyes were blindfolded, and his mouth was stuffed with a ball gag, so his face was unclear, only identifiable as male. His lower body was covered in blood and flesh, soaking the bedsheets red. The bed was also sticky with yellow and white fluids, and on the exposed skin of the corpse, hardened red candle wax was everywhere. Scattered next to the bed were all sorts of toys Hu Yunshan had mentioned or hadn't, things I couldn't even identify. There were even a few syringes and several foxtails, the kind used to be inserted, along with small glass vials containing some sort of oil. So many things, they really knew how to play. Hu Yunshan quietly materialized next to me. He leaned close to my face, clicked his tongue while looking at the photos. "How many pounds is this?" Played themselves to death. Then he pointed at the glass vials with strange symbols in the photos. "This is Thai corpse oil, Quen Thong. This is Indian god oil. This is love potion oil. Tusk, drugs, poison, and oil. Truly seeking pleasure without caring for life." We reported it to the police and checked the cameras, but let alone a check-in record, there wasn't even camera footage of him entering the hotel, nor anyone else entering or leaving that room. But the police insisted this was a primary crime scene. General Manager Jin was sweating profusely as he spoke. He explained to me, "Our hotel is 5-star. Except for inside the rooms and toilets, cameras are installed everywhere possible. There are almost no blind spots. That room is on the 24th floor, so no one could have climbed in." Jin Chengguang could only force a bitter, helpless smile. "Shouldn't you go to the police about this?" I brushed away Hu Yunshan's hand, who was about to take photos of the toys with his phone, and glared at him. "Don't think I don't know what he's thinking. I shook the gruesome death photo in front of him, implying, "You don't want me to die horribly like this, do you?" No residency record, no camera footage of people entering or leaving, and the police haven't identified the victim yet, so we had to seal off that room and restrict access to the entire floor. Jin Chengguang glanced around as he spoke, then his voice dropped very low. But strangely, after the police took the body for examination, the corpse mysteriously disappeared. We don't know how it vanished. As if terrified, he moved closer to me. The case of the missing corpse became a cold case, but immediately after, the hotel started to get haunted. Very violent. We invited several masters, but none of them worked. How come I haven't heard of this? I put away the bloody photos and turned to Hu Yunshan. The local immortals all looked to Hu Yunshan as their leader. The 5 great immortals cooperated, so there was no way a shrine would accept such a difficult job without any notification. This lustful fox spirit, could it be that he was hiding this information from me because I kicked him off the bed? If I had known something happened at this hotel, I would have told him to find you earlier. That's a legitimate reason. How could you have kicked me off the bed? Hu Yunshan's foxtail immediately wrapped around my waist. He glanced at the blindfolded man in the photo. Tell him to find a front-facing photo. I'll ask Master Hui to check. We need to find the body first and identify who the deceased is. Master Hui was the leader of the rats, managing all the small and large rats in the area, specializing in gathering information. It was most suitable to have them search. But Jin Chengguang quickly explained, "Man Tin Van, please don't misunderstand. Most of our clients are locals, and we didn't dare invite local masters to resolve it, fearing the news would leak and cause panic. The masters we invited were all from other places. Even internal staff were only told it was for cleaning. It became more and more chaotic. The outside masters all said they couldn't suppress it. Out of options, our boss had some connection with Master Bai, so he sought him out, and Master Bai then recommended you, Man Tin Van." Jin Chengguang gave a flattering smile. A 5-star hotel with mostly local clients. I glanced at the unmentionable props and suddenly understood why the indecent fox spirit Hu Yunshan knew about this hotel. Good news travels far. No, bad news travels far indeed. I cleared my throat and said, "Tell me more about the haunting." That's hard to explain. Jin Chengguang's eyes darted around in his dark-rimmed eye sockets like a panda. He pulled out a check from his pocket and offered it to me with both hands. "Man Tin Van, please accept this as a token of our appreciation." To be honest, I had never accepted a check before. I picked it up and looked. Very good. If it weren't for the numbers written in capital letters next to it, the string of zeros would have been enough to make my eyes tired counting. Hu Yunshan looked over and sneered, "This case is a bit big. Your heart is shielded by a layer. This kind of dark, lewd, and filthy business, you should be careful. Although I want to come to this hotel to expand my knowledge, if it's too dangerous, it's best not to get involved with your current abilities." But when I gently placed Master Bai's token aside, he immediately fell silent. "Like this?" I put the check down and looked at Jin Chengguang. "This haunting hasn't caused another death, has it?" Ghosts are like people. Whether they have taken a life or not completely changes their nature. No murders yet, but this is extremely bizarre. Our boss's intention is to invite you, Man Tin Van, to stay at the hotel overnight for half a month. You'll understand when you see for yourself." Jin Chengguang's face was grim. He spoke of a haunting but couldn't describe what it was, and then asked me to stay overnight. Before I could even think it through, Hu Yunshan's foxtail wrapped around me again, taking advantage of the fact that no one but me could see him. He rubbed his face against mine, shamelessly whining. "Go on, please. We owe Master Bai a huge favor. He rarely takes on cases. It's just staying overnight for half a month, isn't it? I'll go with you. Go, go, go." I pinched his tail hard. Don't think I didn't know what he was thinking, but I also wanted to see what kind of ghost could cause such chaos. So, Hu Yunshan and I split up. I went to the hotel, and he went to find Master Hui to gather information about the ghosts in the hotel and what happened to the masters who were invited. While he was at it, he was also supposed to meet Master Bai to find out where this favor came from. Before leaving, Hu Yunshan wrapped his tail around my waist and leaned into my arms, pouting. "You'll be staying overnight for half a month. Tell him to arrange a super suite for you. It'll save you from running back and forth. Water beds, round beds, I can handle them all. Look how many places I have to run to. I'm so tired, aren't I? The money is yours, the credit is yours. You have to treat me to something, right?" I gave him a kick. People had died, the place was haunted, and all he could think about was those things. That evening, I packed my bags and headed to the Jin Ye Hotel. Jin Chengguang was very thoughtful, preparing a super suite for me. Very good. This room was directly above room 2415, where the incident occurred. Inside was a very large, round water bed. The decorations had been changed, but the existing furniture and the seductive pink curtains clearly didn't match. I suggested going down to room 2415 to take a look, but it was still sealed off. Jin Chengguang didn't dare let me in either. However, he said the crime scene inside was well preserved. I could pretend to be staff and go in with the police when they came to re-examine. You can store your luggage first. Here's your meal voucher for half a month, and this is a master key card. I've already informed the reception. You can just go there. If anything happens, just call me. I'm in the staff lounge. Jin Chengguang respectfully handed me each item. The master key card must have been his own. There was a gold-plated Jin written on the top left corner. When I arrived, the hotel lobby was quite crowded. The banquet halls on the second and third floors were all fully booked. On the way, I had checked the prices. Renting a banquet hall for one day alone cost over 10,000 yuan, not including decoration costs. The 2 floors must have had over a dozen large banquet halls, not to mention hundreds of 1,000 yuan rooms and 10,000 yuan suites. Except for the 24th floor, which was restricted, all other rooms were full. I truly couldn't understand why these locals would spend thousands of yuan to sleep in a hotel for one night. Did they have so much money they just burned it? Looking at this, the 6-digit check didn't seem like much. No wonder Jin Chengguang was so afraid of the haunting, disrupting business. I dared not imagine the daily revenue here. I put down my luggage, wondering whether to hang my clothes in the wardrobe. What if I caught the ghost, wherever it came from, tonight and could go home tomorrow? Suddenly, I felt a tightening around my waist. The clingy fox spirit Hu Yunshan had embraced me. Man Tin Van, this case is interesting. The dead person isn't human, is he? This guy was starting his tricks again, always wanting to be petted. I was about to lean back into his arms to coax him to finish his sentence when the door clicked open. Jin Chengguang, who had just left, rushed back in. Man Tin Van, it's starting, hurry. He dashed to my side, grabbed me, and pulled me outside. Hu Yunshan, who was holding me, was so angry he extended his claws, almost tearing Jin Chengguang's arm. I quickly grabbed his paw and pulled him into the elevator with us. Once in the elevator, Jin Chengguang handed me his phone. There's a child crying in the women's restroom on the 3rd floor. Take a look. The video showed a public restroom. The lights were quite bright, but the intermittent cries of a newborn baby echoed. The tiled floor was covered in bloody handprints, making my skin crawl. Perhaps due to the recent haunting rumors, internal staff had heard bits and pieces, so no one dared to go in. I glanced at Hu Yunshan, his face also darkened. He pulled me away from Jin Chengguang, almost biting my ear as he whispered, "This hotel isn't just normally haunted. Looking at the photo he showed you, with the Thai corpse oil, I'm afraid they're hiding something else that attracted these strange things. Let's check on the crying baby first. I'll tell you more later." Following Jin Chengguang to the restroom, the night cleaning lady was crying in fear, quickly pointing inside to the innermost squatting stall. Jin Chengguang also didn't dare go in, just whimpered and clasped his hands, begging me, "It's all up to you, Man Tin Van, I beg you." From his demeanor, I could tell he was scared out of his wits. I took out my spiritual artifact and gestured to Hu Yunshan, slowly walking inside. As soon as I stepped into the women's restroom, I smelled a strong stench of blood mixed with a strange, indescribable odor. The floor was covered in handprints and streaks of blood extending from the innermost stall to the wash basin, as if someone had committed murder inside, crawled out, washed their hands, and then fled in panic. I edged my way inside, seeing the toilet stall door from which the baby's cries emanated, covered in bloody handprints and dimly visible scratches of varying depths. Clearly, the person inside had suffered extreme pain. I signaled to Hu Yunshan, then pushed the door open forcefully and froze. I pushed open the restroom door, covered in bloody handprints and scratches, and looked in the direction of the baby's cries. I saw a newborn baby, its head stuck in the squat toilet, purplish red and pale, its tiny face bruised purple. It occasionally convulsed, letting out weak cries. Its 2 arms were splayed out to the sides of the toilet, and half of its umbilical cord was still attached below. Thoughts of babies born in restrooms and then abandoned immediately flashed through my mind. I quickly reached out to pick up the baby, turning to tell Hu Yunshan, "Go quickly and find Master Bai for some life-saving medicine." I didn't know how long it had been stuck there. What if something happened if I saved it? I squatted down, carefully feeling around the baby's head with both hands, trying to figure out where to support it to lift its tiny body out. Newborns are very soft and difficult to handle. Looking at the bloody handprints and scratches on the door, I could see how much pain the mother must have endured giving birth. How could she bear to put her newborn baby in a toilet? This was clearly an attempt to kill it. Just as I touched the baby's chin, intending to lift it, Hu Yunshan's foxtail swept over, wrapping tightly around my arm. "Don't touch it, it's about to be gone." I looked at the baby's purplish-black lips. I quickly reached out to support its chin, gently trying to pull it out of the toilet. The moment my fingertips applied a slight force, the baby, whose eyes were tightly closed as if about to suffocate, suddenly opened its mouth wide and viciously bit towards my hand. As its mouth opened, its tightly pursed lips disappeared, revealing its gum line and sharp, black tooth buds that hadn't fully emerged. I was completely unprepared, and the distance was too close. Just as I was about to be bitten, Hu Yunshan's foxtail, wrapped around my arm, tugged hard. My hand slid past the baby's mouth, avoiding the black teeth. Then he let out a cold snort. A streak of firelight flashed towards the infant's corpse that had turned into a skull, and with one arm, he scooped me up. The flash of fire, and the baby stuck in the toilet vanished instantly. "This is an infant ghost spirit." Hu Yunshan pulled me back out. Looking at the lingering bloody handprints on the restroom door, he snorted coldly. "It really is a haunting." It was only then that I fully recovered. Due to the unique service nature of this hotel, one needed to swipe a card to access the upper floors. Although the third floor was for banquet halls and required an invitation, who would run into this restroom to give birth. Usually, cases of infant abandonment occur in public restrooms or shopping malls, but no child had died abandoned here, so why was this type of infant ghost rampant? Man Tin Van," Jin Chengguang called out from outside, his voice trembling. "Are you okay? It's done." I glanced at the bloody handprints and scratches on the door, thinking that since the infant ghost had vanished, these marks should logically disappear too. But after a long wait, even when Jin Chengguang poked his head in, he still had to tiptoe around the bloodstains on the ground. Seeing me look at his feet, he carefully moved to a spot without blood. "Man Tin Van, was there a baby? I don't hear crying anymore." "No, it's just a haunting." Looking at his cautious demeanor, he clearly knew something. I pointed directly at the bloody scratches on the door. "Has your hotel ever had something like this happen? How could it?" Jin Chengguang quickly shook his head, his face full of pride. "Our hotel is 5-star. Our clients are all high-quality individuals. Even if they get pregnant, it's to climb higher or to demand child support and fight for inheritance. Who would ever abandon a child in a restroom?" "Then how do you explain this?" I snorted coldly. The pride on Jin Chengguang's face stiffened. He sighed and called out, "Aunt Tran, come clean up, it's okay now." Then he gestured for me to step outside. Theoretically, a haunting should involve someone who died here, but this didn't happen on our premises, so I wasn't convenient to tell you initially. You can hear the baby crying clearly, and this blood is like real blood. This kind of half-real, half-fake haunting is truly frightening. It was true, even I hadn't realized the baby was a ghost. I glanced at Hu Yunshan. He directly placed his hand on a relatively intact bloody handprint on the ground, then dipped his fingertip in a bit of blood and sniffed it. He nodded to me. "It's indeed blood from childbirth mixed with amniotic fluid. Looking at the handprint, it belongs to a girl under 20, with slender, soft fingers, probably still a student." In other words, these bloodstains weren't faked by anyone, but were residual traces left after the haunting. But I had never heard of a haunting leaving such physical traces afterwards. If this continued, who would argue whether ghosts existed in the world? Hu Yunshan took another photo of a slightly blurred, bloody handprint. "This handprint is very clear. Fingerprints are visible. I'll send it to Li Wei and ask him to check." Li Wei was the head of the 2nd Criminal Investigation Team in this area. In the past, there had been a few strange murder cases, and we were reluctantly sought out. Grandma, being old, couldn't bear such sights, so it was always Hu Yunshan and I who went to help resolve them. His Bazzi 8 characters was special, allowing him to see Hu Yunshan, and after a few interactions, they became like brothers. Ghostly matters mostly stem from the heart. To resolve them, one must find the root cause. Not long after Hu Yunshan sent the message, he received a reply from Li Wei. Half a year ago, a female student was returning late from extra classes, cycling past a green belt when she heard intermittent, miserable cat cries. Worried, she stopped to look and found two men tormenting a kitten. Seeing her, they looked up and gave a sinister smile. Frightened, she tried to run, but another person rushed out from the bushes behind and drugged her. When she woke up, she was in a nearby public restroom, woken by a cleaning lady, her whole body covered in injuries. What she had endured was clear without words. Her family reported it to the police, but due to inhaling a large amount of anesthetic and the torment throughout the night, her mental state was unstable. She couldn't remember the details of the case at all. The perpetrators were experienced. They had washed away all traces on her body right there in the public restroom. The police couldn't collect any useful evidence. Furthermore, the public restroom had many passers-by, and there were many construction sites nearby. Most of the security cameras were intentionally damaged, leaving no clues whatsoever. More tragically, not long after, the girl became pregnant. Her family forced her to have an abortion, but each time they took her to the hospital, she would scream hysterically. They also took her to a psychiatrist, but she adamantly refused. Her family tried to persuade her repeatedly without success, coupled with harsh public opinion, which all said it was definitely because she dressed provocatively. What decent female student would be out late at night? Maybe she was working as a prostitute. Finally, after her family tried to force an abortion one last time, her emotions exploded. She moved out to live alone. And the public restroom where she gave birth and abandoned the child was the very place she had been raped years ago. According to the file Li Wei sent, the scene there was 100 times filthier than this hotel. The toilet bowl was so encrusted one couldn't see its original color. A thick layer of yellow urine scale covered the door and partitions, covered in bloody handprints and scratches. A tooth had fallen next to the water pipe. No one knew how she had endured that night alone in that place, filled with painful memories, biting the water pipe to give birth, then coldly watching it sink into the filthy toilet bowl. After stepping out of the stall, she slit her wrists at the wash basin outside, her blood mixing with water, flooding the entire restroom. According to Li Wei's and his colleagues' speculation, she wanted to wait for the child to be born to conduct DNA testing to find the perpetrator. But she didn't know how to face that child while alive. Therefore, she chose to end her own life and the child's right where the tragedy began. But looking at the file, the case remains unsolved to this day. Li Wei replied that the current DNA database was incomplete. Although DNA was extracted from the infant's corpse, it couldn't be matched in the system, remaining a cold case. So when Hu Yunshan sent the bloody handprint with fingerprints, it only took a few seconds for the database to pull up this case. Looking at the bloody handprints on the restroom door, my heart sank. No wonder the resentment was so heavy. Humiliated, giving birth, then dying. Although the time and gender were different, there were similarities to the deceased in room 2415. Hu Yunshan put away his phone and patted my shoulder. Since you know now, think of a way to avenge the mother and child. Leaving the restroom, I saw a surveillance camera at the entrance. I asked Jin Chengguang to extract the camera footage to watch. After all, judging by the bloodstains, the girl had crawled away after giving birth. I want to see how realistically this ghost acts. Can the camera capture it? In Li Wei's file, to protect the victim's identity, names were withheld. The camera footage was in the server room in the basement. But after the incident, to protect the privacy of guests and the hotel, Jin Chengguang gave me a forced smile. Just when I thought I wouldn't be able to see it, he said he had to log into the administrative system from the reception desk's main server, then request a real-time permission code from the boss to view it. Please follow me. This real-time permission code, couldn't it be obtained with a phone call? Why go all the way to a specialized computer? But I didn't understand their business, so I didn't press for details. At the reception desk, I glanced at the row of world clocks on the wall. It was past 10 p.m. 4 receptionists and a lobby manager were busy attending to guests. Jin Chengguang went straight to the leftmost computer and started operating it, opening specialized software, entering employee codes, looking quite complicated. Taking this opportunity, I observed the guests entering and leaving while listening to Hu Yunshan mumbling in my ear. The deceased he showed you in the photo, though his eyes and face weren't visible, masturby, and I carefully examined other crime scene photos and found that the cuffed hands had no palm lines or fingerprints. They definitely weren't human, nor were they ghosts. Hu Yunshan zoomed in on the photo on his phone and showed it to me. Human hands have palm lines and fingerprints, related to destiny. Each person is unique. Even if they die and become a ghost, they retain their living fingerprints. The enlarged hands in the photo were indeed utterly smooth, without any lines, exactly like a plastic doll. Hu Yunshan was usually indecent, but when it came to serious matters, he was still very reliable. If the police could take the body, it means it was alive before, probably a demon. Then the body disappeared, probably like the infant ghost just now, with too much resentment, turning into a troublesome ghost after death and then vanishing. But to come into our territory and not even pay respects at the shrine, to be killed and us not receive any news. This hotel is really good at hiding information. Hu Yunshan frowned, observing the people entering and leaving with me. He whispered in my ear, and those fox tails in the photo, they're not stuffed toys. They're tails cut from real foxes. Master Hui has arranged for the young rats to go to the police station to try and steal those tails. I've also sent out a message, checking our kin around here to see if any young foxes have had their tails cut off, then we'll follow the clues. Master Hui also said, this hotel has been very strange recently, automatically gathering negative energy. Just as you saw, ghosts that shouldn't appear here are being attracted by something. They enter the hotel and are half real, half fake. There must be something being done in this hotel, attracting all the wandering, lonely souls and mischievous spirits, making them unable to distinguish between the ghost realm and the human world. Even we find it hard to tell if they're human or ghost. As Hu Yunshan was speaking, his eyes settled on a young woman who looked extremely sophisticated. She was about 20 years old, with chestnut hair styled in a neat bun secured by a hairpin. From her attire to her demeanor, she was impeccably elegant and intellectual. She had her arm linked with a man around 40, wearing a gold watch and holding luxury car keys. As if sensing my gaze, she even looked up and smiled at me. The receptionist next to her looked at me with confusion but still proceeded with her check-in. Even after the woman entered the elevator, Hu Yunshan's eyes remained fixed on her. I nudged him. What's wrong? A bit strange. Hu Yunshan frowned in suspicion. He pulled me. Let's follow and check first. Didn't you say to check the camera first? But Jin Chengguang seemed anxious, still struggling to get the permission code after a long time. Just as Hu Yunshan pulled me, intending to follow into the elevator, a disheveled woman with swollen eyes, wearing pajamas and clutching a cleaver, aggressively stormed in. The security guards tried to stop her, but she brandished the knife, making a chopping motion. The guards retreated in fear. She was still enraged, slashing the air a few times. She strode to the reception desk and chopped down directly onto the counter. Where's that bastard? And that fox spirit, she's in room 2415, right? Take me there, quickly. Room 2415 was the room where the first corpse was found. Wasn't it sealed? How could someone still book it? The woman was still screaming hysterically. The receptionist's face was ashen with fear, trying to softly reassure her that the room wasn't booked. The lobby manager was calling the police, and security guards, holding riot shields, cautiously approached. Give me the room card to open the elevator. The woman saw the receptionist not moving, so she swung the knife, chopping into the computer screen. She held the knife horizontally, her eyes scanning around, and immediately spotted me standing closest to the elevator. Her gaze fell on the master keycard I was holding. She immediately raised the knife again and charged aggressively towards me. I held the room card, suddenly feeling I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. To encounter such a scene of someone barging into a hotel with a knife to catch a cheater. The lobby manager and the receptionists also looked at the room card in my hand with suspicion, anxiously signaling me to get out of the way. Seeing me not moving, the lobby manager's face turned pale. He quickly snatched an umbrella from the stand nearby and, with 2 security guards, rushed towards me. Just as the woman with the knife lunged at me, the blade held horizontally, aiming for my throat. Hu Yunshan let out a cold snort, about to intervene, but suddenly gasped. Oh. The moment the knife was about to touch me, I abruptly lifted my leg and kicked her knee, simultaneously leaning and using a grappling technique to grab her shoulder, but my leg kicked into thin air and my hand passed straight through her body. My strike went into empty space, with nowhere to exert force, and I staggered forward, almost falling flat on my face. Luckily, Hu Yunshan caught me in time. The woman, seeing my hand pass through her shoulder, also showed fear on her face, but immediately after, a glimmer of hope appeared. "You're a ghost. Are there really ghosts? Then I can see my son?" But immediately after, Hu Yunshan quickly pulled me back a few steps. With a clang, the cleaver fell straight to the ground, chipping a crack in the tile. And the woman, like the infant ghost in the restroom, vanished without a trace. The entire lobby instantly fell silent. I leaned into Hu Yunshan's arms, looking at the knife on the ground, then at the master key card in my hand. So, this was also a ghost. No wonder Hu Yunshan had hesitated to act earlier. She had just intended to catch her husband cheating in room 2415. "Why didn't you dodge? What were you doing watching the spectacle?" The lobby manager, holding the umbrella, rushed over, panting, and looked at me. "Where did you get this master key card? We can explain what just happened. Please come upstairs to the meeting room." As he spoke, his eyes were fixed on the card in my hand, then his face turned strange, and he retreated several steps. Even when the female ghost with the knife charged in earlier, he hadn't been this scared. "Your general manager Jin gave it to me. Didn't he say he had already instructed you?" I turned my head towards the leftmost computer and softly called out, "General Manager Jin, is your permission code ready?" But next to that computer, there was no one. Recalling the receptionist's confused expression when I came here with Jin Chengguang to get the code, my heart sank. I turned to Hu Yunshan. He also looked utterly astonished, nodding with a dry laugh. "Excellent, excellent, excellent. Hunting wild geese all year, only to have my eyes pecked out by a goose today." The lobby manager was so scared he kept backing away, holding the umbrella defensively, looking at me with extreme caution. "Considering I tried to save you just now, you can go wherever you want. If you need any incense or offerings, just let me know and we'll burn them for you immediately." Was he treating me as a ghost now? Seeing me not moving, the lobby manager's eyes darted around, as if he had an idea. He gritted his teeth and knelt down before me. "Every wrong has a head, every debt has a master. If you have any grievances, just speak. We have already called the police and will report to them later." "Man Tin Van." At that moment, a surprised voice rang out from the lobby entrance. The newcomer glanced at Hu Yunshan, who was holding me tightly, clicked his tongue in disapproval at the unbearable scene, then looked at the lobby manager kneeling on the ground, frowning in confusion. He strode over to me and whispered, "Are you pulling your great immortal manifesting trick to scare people again? Superiors are banning superstition now. Tell your coquettish fox to retract his tail. Aren't you afraid it'll get chopped off?" As he spoke, he poked the fox tail wrapped around my waist. Seeing Hu Yunshan not getting angry, he even smiled in surprise. "Oh, the great immortal is in a good mood today." Then he waved his hand at the manager and his staff. "It's okay, this is my friend. You called the police saying someone with a knife broke in, right? Where is that person?" The lobby manager looked bewildered, pointed to the cleaver at my feet, then stammered, "Captain Li Shi." In her hand is General Manager Jin's card. It's the card that was found inserted in that spot of General Manager Jin's when the body was discovered. Although I had vaguely guessed Jin Chengguang was a ghost, hearing the manager's clear confirmation, my heart still skipped a beat. The master key card in my hand suddenly felt unusually black and cold. Li Wei finally saw the card in my hand, gritted his teeth, and whispered, "Where did you get that?" Then he ordered someone to take an evidence bag and retrieve the card. Hu Yunshan, standing next to me, sneered, glared at Li Wei, then pointed at the surveillance camera. "See for yourself." Li Wei's face also turned serious. He had someone pick up the cleaver and take it back to compare it with evidence from other cases to see if it belonged to any. From his tone, it seemed he was certain it was a murder weapon. It looked like he had experience handling cases at the Jin Ye Hotel. Li Wei signaled for us to calm down, then told the manager to extract the recent surveillance footage. Indeed, from the moment I stepped out of the elevator until I stood next to the computer from beginning to end, there was only me. I even occasionally turned left to say a word, turned right to say 2 words, looking no different from a mentally disturbed person. "Man Tin Van, the top-ranked among immortals, even you get tricked by ghosts sometimes, huh?" Li Wei looked at the surveillance screen and sighed. He told the manager to copy this footage, said a few reassuring words so the manager could handle his staff, then took us into the duty room. After closing the door, he asked, "Tell me, what's the deal with Jin Chengguang? He's a ghost and he still sought out your shrine?" Bringing this up, I was both annoyed and confused. He even carried Master Bai's token, meaning even Master Bai didn't recognize him as a ghost. He even dared to come to the shrine in broad daylight. Are ghosts rampant in broad daylight these days? After Hu Yunshan recounted being invited, I took out the check. Li Wei took it, looked, and chuckled dismissively. This check was signed almost 10 years ago. Didn't you look at the date? As he spoke, I was startled and looked closely. The handwriting was scribbled, so if you didn't look carefully, you wouldn't notice that the check was dated not 2024, but 2014. A check from 10 years ago, used by Jin Chengguang to invite me. 10 years ago, 6 digits was not a small sum. Li Wei's face grew heavier, and he immediately confiscated the check. This was also a missing item from the evidence room. I'll take it back for now. He turned to us. You two know about the dead person and the missing body in room 2415, right? Seeing us nod, he took out his work phone and showed us. The very next day after the body disappeared, when they returned to examine the scene, they found Jin Chengguang's body on the wall. In the photo, Jin Chengguang was also naked, like the missing corpse, but he wasn't handcuffed. He was tied with ropes and hung from the window curtain rod. Looking at the artistic way he was tied, it was clear what kind of game was being played. This time, not only was his lower body covered in blood, but his entire body was also covered in whip marks. The scattered props were even more numerous than with the previous victim. And the room card he gave me was inserted in an indescribable place on him. Only the gold-plated Jin in the top left corner was visible, sparkling under the bright lights. I instinctively wiped my hand, which held the card, on my clothes. No wonder the lobby manager's face turned so pale when he saw the card in my hand. Recalling how Jin Chengguang refused when I asked to see room 2415, my heart felt even more unsettled. Is it the same group of perpetrators? Hu Yunshan scrolled through the photos, asking Li Wei, Jin Chengguang's body wasn't lost, was it? With 2 consecutive murders, you still let the hotel operate. Li Wei forced a bitter smile. The body wasn't lost. Don't ask too many questions about this hotel. Knowing you two were coming, I asked to take on this case. I received the report on my way here. Thinking of Jin Chengguang's comment that most clients were locals and that the high-priced suites on the upper floors were never empty, it was probably for exorcism or spiritual cleansing. Hu Yunshan snorted coldly. Wealth cannot corrupt. Indeed, not in the way books teach. He put his arm around me and said to Li Wei, in that case, we're not getting involved in this. You knew this hotel was haunted, yet you didn't seek us out earlier. You probably thought you could handle it yourselves. Good luck. I can't not get involved. Li Wei sighed, glancing at Hu Yunshan. He opened an encrypted file on his phone, entered the password, and showed it to us. That cleaver just now was the murder weapon in a case from a year ago, also in room 2415. The victim, Wang Qingqing, and her husband built their business from scratch. When they made some money, her husband had an affair. They had a son in middle school. She originally intended to overlook it for their child. Li Wei spoke, pulling out a pack of cigarettes and about to light one. Cough, Hu Yunshan coughed, tightening his grip around me. What? Li Wei pouted. You're a great immortal. Hu Yunshan, people worship immortals by sweetly coaxing them. Look at you, you're a fox, but you live like a puppy. I like it that way. You want to be a lapdog? You don't even know whose lap you'd be licking yet. Hu Yunshan put his arm around my shoulder, his tail still habitually wrapping around me. The 2 years man, Tin Van, was gone. I don't know who kept bringing me liquor every couple of weeks, getting me drunk, then wailing like a ghost in the middle of the night. Li Wei glared at him but put his cigarette away. Seeing Hu Yunshan about to argue back, I quickly grabbed his tail, signaling him to be quiet. Li Wei chuckled then, his face serious again, continued. Then Wang Qingqing discovered that her husband wasn't just squandering assets, causing the company to lose money, but also put her name as the legal representative to shoulder debt, wanting to frame her. They had a huge argument. She was beaten and bleeding from the head. Her son, pitying his mother, intervened, but the husband kicked him down, and his head hit the edge of a table, killing him instantly. At this point, Li Wei seemed unable to contain himself, again pulling out a cigarette and sniffing it. On the day of their son's funeral, the husband even arranged to meet someone in room 2415. That night, she took the cleaver you just saw, stormed in, restrained the receptionist, and stole a room card. So the scene we just saw was a reenactment of the past. Li Wei inhaled deeply from the unlit cigarette and forced a bitter smile. She thought she was going to catch a fox spirit, but when she burst in, she found her husband was the one on the bottom. The game was as twisted as Jin Chengguang's case. There were several other men in the room. She furiously lunged at them. The men ganged up and struggled. In the chaos, she was stabbed in the heart with her own knife, dying before an ambulance could even arrive. In other words, what happened in room 2415 was almost a repeated scenario. Then, where is the husband? I had thought the wealthy man with the sophisticated woman earlier was the husband, but it turns out he was a submissive. Wang Qingqing stabbed someone with a knife. Only her fingerprints were on the knife. The men were acting in self-defense, at most guilty of group indecency. Nothing serious happened to them. Li Wei gave a self-deprecating, dry chuckle. Strangely, 1 month after his wife died, the husband also disappeared. No sight of him alive, no body found after death. I instinctively remembered the missing corpse in room 2415, whose palms also had no lines, and it was the same room. This meant Wang Qingqing and the girl who gave birth in the restroom were similar. Both died unjustly and had no one to seek justice from. But the 3 deaths, Wang Qingqing, Jin Chengguang, and the missing body all occurred in room 2415. The rape case in the public restroom and the Jin Ye Hotel were not related to the same group of perpetrators. I couldn't connect the dots immediately. Li Wei took a deep breath, seemingly making a decision, and handed his phone to Hu Yunshan. Here's the front-facing photo of the body you wanted. About this hotel being haunted, it's not that I didn't want to tell you, but I was afraid you couldn't handle it. By principle, those involved should avoid the scene, but who knew the ghost Jin Chengguang would invite you to? What is there that I can't handle? Hu Yunshan took the phone, looked down, then immediately exclaimed, "Holy cow!" He glared at Li Wei. "Are you serious or joking? Don't mess with me." In the photo, the body had been taken down, the blindfold and gag removed, but the front-facing visage was identical to Hu Yunshan's. After seeing his own face in the photo, the entire fox spirit was unsettled. He looked up, staring intently at Li Wei, wishing he could lunge and bite him. "You dared to hide this from me? I am a fox immortal, not a mere rabbit. And a gigolo, played to death at that, who's tired of living to dare amuse me." He was so angry he quickly scrolled through the photos on the phone. Typically, crime scene photos are taken from multiple angles to avoid missing details. From several consecutive angles, that face was still exactly like Hu Yunshan's, even the small red mole behind his ear. Every time he angered me, just a light lick there would make this fox spirit go limp. Hu Yunshan grew angrier the more he looked, even baring his fangs. "Good, very good." His sharp claws popped out, scratching the phone screen with a screech. Li Wei, seeing this, quickly looked to me for help. I sighed, reaching out to rub his chest a few times to calm him down, then said, "This case seems to be targeting us. That corpse, if not a demon, is a human effigy. And they intentionally displayed fox tails, dying in such a half-covered, half-exposed way. It only disappeared after the police were called. From the beginning, this was a trap for Hu Yunshan. Perhaps the mastermind didn't expect Captain Li Wei to know Hu Yunshan, so they intentionally suppressed this information from us." Hu Yunshan gradually calmed down. "This isn't something I could fake so realistically. It's highly likely to be a voodoo doll, a witch's effigy, a stand-in. I'll find old Min who specializes in making effigies to ask for his help." Then he spoke sternly to Li Wei. "This hotel is very strange. You protect Man Tin Van well, don't leave her side for half a step." "Understood." Li Wei also nodded seriously. After Hu Yunshan left, Li Wei only then said to me, "Did Jin Chengguang tell you about the hotel inviting outside masters to perform exorcisms?" Seeing me nod, he continued, "They invited 3 groups, all 3 died." He showed me his phone. The 3 groups of people. One group clearly looked like they were from Thailand. In recent years, tourism there has developed, and with movies, many Buddha amulets and cumin thong dolls have been imported. Many people bring them back just to seek profit, without reverence, without proper worship, so they suffer many repercussions. Last month, I met a group of Ajarn's black-robed sorcerers who buried them alive. I didn't expect another group to die here. Another group was Southeast Asian sorcerers, wearing human skull ritual tools around their necks, finger bone beads on their hands, black teeth, tattooed with spells, carrying many corpse oils and various ancient insects. The last group was even stranger. They didn't seem to belong to any sect. They wore black clothes like priests, their ritual tools were all silver, but their faces showed they were locals. The strange thing is that these deceased people had no injuries on their bodies. They all died in their private rooms. Some died in already set up magic circles, some held ritual tools, some seemed to be doing something unknown. In short, they died suddenly, their faces extremely peaceful, without fear or ferocity. "Have the autopsies been performed?" I looked at the photos on Li Wei's phone, starting to feel a chill. As things stood, all the ghosts didn't know they were dead. They were still repeating their actions before death. This type usually had extremely heavy resentment, unresolved grievances, so they refused to pass on. And the exorcists died silently. This was the most terrifying thing. Because there wasn't even an opportunity for a spiritual battle, it showed an enormous disparity in power. No, Li Wei forced a bitter smile, taking his phone back. The cameras showed they all died suddenly in sealed rooms. It couldn't be classified as a criminal case, so we weren't allowed to perform autopsies immediately. The two foreign groups required working with their embassies. The local group, we haven't been able to contact their families yet. Why didn't you tell me when Hu Yunshan was here? I leaned against the elevator, looking at Li Wei. He's a Fox Immortal. He might get ruffled by outsiders taking his rice bowl like this. Li Wei shook his head helplessly. Luckily you're back. Otherwise, this fox spirit wouldn't bother. He's a Fox Immortal. He should be supernatural and detached from worldly affairs. Why would he get involved? I chuckled dismissively. If it weren't for me, Hu Yunshan would have gone into seclusion to cultivate and attain enlightenment. Why bother struggling in this sordid mortal realm? Just as the elevator arrived, Li Wei called another colleague and dragged the lobby manager along. Finally, he agreed to take me to room 2415, where people kept dying. Room 2415 was at the end of the corridor. The further we walked towards it, the more stifling the air became. The hotel had central air conditioning year-round, so it wasn't cold, but there was a strange, hard-to-describe smell, like incense mixed with disinfectant and dust. Opening the door, the layout was identical to my room upstairs. There were just 2 additional diagrams marking the positions of the deceased and many numbered evidence markers. Although it had been sealed and no one had cleaned it, a faint, melancholic incense smell still lingered in the room. Both cases occurred around the bed, and the victims were all tortured to death, but no suspects were found, nor any semen, hair, or fingerprints collected, as if Jin Chengguang and the corpse with Hu Yunshan's face were tortured to death by some invisible female ghost. Li Wei led me around, shrugging. So, what do you say? I looked into the bathroom. The wash basin was dry, but the bathtub was full of water. The water seemed freshly drawn, as there were no signs of evaporation on the pristine white rim of the tub. I pointed at it. Wasn't this spot checked? Li Wei frowned, telling his colleague to recheck the crime scene photos. I remember the bathtub didn't have water. I walked towards the bathtub, forming a hand seal with my right hand and gently touching the surface of the water with my left pinky finger. Water is spiritual and attracts negative energy, especially in such a place where filth accumulates. The water can contain many things, but as soon as my pinky touched the surface, a chilling sensation pierced to the bone, not like touching water but like touching alcohol, stimulating my finger with a sharp pain. Just as I was about to pull my hand back, from the bottom of the bathtub, swollen, crimson faces surged up. The water churned, hair, diluted blood, and bright red arms reached out to grab me. In a panic, I forcefully slapped the surface of the water with my right hand. With a resounding thwack, water splashed everywhere, accompanied by the unwilling moans of countless evil spirits. Li Wei ran in, startled. What's wrong? I was soaked by the splashing water, casually wiping myself. Looking back at the bathtub, the water surface was as calm as ever, as if my spirit-sounding slap hadn't happened. What are you doing? Li Wei looked at the showerhead and chuckled teasingly. Don't tell me it's like a haunting, and water just spontaneously splashed all over you. Seeing my cold stare, he stopped smiling completely, cleared his throat. It's been checked. Both times the murders occurred, the bathtub had no water. I asked him to retrieve the crime scene photos of the female student's suicide in the restroom and Wang Kinking's case to see if their bathtubs had water, and to take me to see the rooms of the 3 groups of sorcerers. Seeing my face darken, Li Wei knew there was a clue, so he quickly made arrangements. Very clever. I don't know if it was for the convenience of catching ghosts or to save money, but the 3 groups of sorcerers were all arranged in rooms around 2415. No wonder all 3 groups died, confined to the single block of the 24th floor. Excellent cost management, all dying on one floor. We went to check each room. Indeed, the bathtubs in all the rooms where people died were full of water, as if freshly drawn, with no signs of evaporation. Hu Yunshan wasn't here, so I didn't dare to communicate with spirits again, but looking back at Li Wei's file, the female student's suicide was so bloody nothing could be seen. Wang Qingqing's bathtub was also full of water. That day, her husband had a large gathering. The showerhead in the toilet was completely detached and filthy, but the bathtub in the corner remained pristine and clean, as if in another world. I held the photo and said to Li Wei, "How about checking if there's a problem with the water tower?" All the cases seemed to involve water. All sorts of cases of hiding bodies in water tanks flashed through my mind, making me shiver. A hotel doing such prosperous business, I was afraid they weren't hiding bodies but something else entirely, which would be a huge problem. Li Wei also thought of that and sent people to the rooftop to check. In the elevator, I glanced at the lobby manager, then quietly asked Li Wei, "Who exactly is the owner of this hotel? Their influence must be huge. So many people have died, the haunting is known even to the police, yet it still operates normally." Li Wei only forced a bitter smile, shaking his head without speaking. On the rooftop, the workers reported that they had just opened the water tank, and the water was crystal clear, with nothing in it. Even the moss had been cleaned. Li Wei had people take samples for quick testing, and no issues were found. I took a chance and tried to communicate with spirits again, but there was no reaction. Disappointed, we left. While taking the elevator down, we met the sophisticated woman from earlier, coming out of a rooftop suite. She politely nodded to us before stepping in. I hid behind Li Wei's large frame, secretly observing her. Her figure was graceful, her demeanor refined, her clothes elegant yet clearly expensive, exuding the aura of a well-bred family. But Hu Yunshan had said she was strange, at first sight, surely noticing something. At this moment, though her back was turned to me, through her faint reflection in the elevator wall, I could dimly see her forehead shining brightly, indicating good fortune. But around her neck, perhaps due to the elevator wall's reflection or something else, there was a faint dark aura, as if something was wrapped around her neck. Just as I narrowed my eyes to get a better look, she suddenly turned her head and smiled at me, polite, cordial yet with a hint of deeper meaning, then dismissed it with a forced smile. After she left, Li Wei asked, "Why were you staring at her in the elevator?" I narrowed my eyes. "Help me find out her identity. Hu Yunshan never jokes without reason." The lobby manager suddenly coughed, his face awkward. "All right." Li Wei nodded, seeing my serious expression. I scratched my head, yawned. "It's all up to you." Li Wei looked at my hands, scratching my head, and forced a bitter smile. "You're sleepy. Go back to your room and rest a bit. I'll find you after I've made arrangements." "Understood," I waved my hand. But as I took the room card for 2515 from the manager and entered the elevator, I instinctively turned to look at Li Wei. I saw him making a serious phone call. When he saw me looking back, his pupils contracted, then he smiled and waved at me. Thinking of the hotel's strangeness, my heart sank. Still uneasy, I messaged Hu Yunshan, sharing my location and the situation, telling him to come back immediately if he heard anything. Although the mountains around here had been leveled, the dragon's pulse was still there. It wouldn't be easy for anyone to take my life. But my life was very precious. Caution was better. Returning to my room, it was already past 1 a.m. The all-night tension left me exhausted. I threw myself onto the bed, closing my eyes, pondering the common threads in the cases. Aside from water, they all involved violent sexual acts. Was there any other connection? As I was thinking, I suddenly felt a tightening around my waist, a foxtail wrapping around me. The water bed rippled, a hand caressed my face, gently pinching my ear, exhaling hot breath. I was too lazy to open my eyes, reaching out to push his head away, but for some reason, the breath on my ear brought an unusually itchy sensation. My body suddenly went limp, swaying with the rhythm of the water bed. The hand that was pushing him away now felt like it was caressing. Although my body was so teased by Hu Yunshan that it couldn't stand any stimulation, it shouldn't be this weak. With some doubt, I opened my eyes, realizing the lights in the room had dimmed at some point. Seductive. Hu Yunshan narrowed his flirtatious fox eyes, lying on his side next to me, chuckling softly, slowly leaning closer to me, his breath heavy, a fragrant scent. My consciousness grew more and more hazy, my body swaying with each wave of the waterbed, completely limp, my chest tight as if craving something. The remaining sliver of rationality made me push his face away. "Don't mess around, I'm thinking about serious matters. Don't think about that as soon as we're on a waterbed." Before I finished speaking, my mind went blank with a thud. The large round waterbed was still shaking. My body felt like it was actually floating on water, buoyant, and my finger that was pushing Hu Yunshan's face unconsciously tightened. The sensation was slippery smooth, but without warmth. This was the sensation of the voodoo doll crafted by old Min. And the water was not water from the water tower. Man Tin Van, Hu Yunshan saw my hand stiffen and leaned in to whisper, "You are a mountain spirit, nurtured by the essence of the dragon's pulse. Making love with you, Kim Fong and Gok Lo, would be worth countless years of absorbing the essence of the sun, moon, and stars. He tries to seduce you day and night, isn't it because he covets this? Do you think it's true love?" Seeing that I had discovered him, he didn't even bother to pretend anymore. My waist was tightly wrapped by his tail, and one ear was being pinched by him. I dared not move recklessly. I lay stiffly on the swaying waterbed, chuckled dismissively at him. "So you orchestrated all these events, wanting to have Kim Fong and Gok Lo with me? To put it elegantly, but actually wanting to extract my essence. It turns out his death wasn't due to abuse, but because he was absorbing yang energy. Perhaps in the shadows, he had already absorbed countless amounts of yin energy. Foxes are hermaphroditic. A voodoo doll like him that has gained sentience must have absorbed energy from countless people. But the essence of mortals is impure and chaotic. For him, it only offers quantity, not quality, which is why he set his sights on me. I didn't want to do those things." He narrowed his eyes, his finger toying with my earlobe, saying affectionately, "I just want you." Just as he was about to move closer, I suddenly opened my mouth. A golden light shot out directly into his face. At the same time, my hair darted out like needles, piercing his hand that was pinching my ear. My right hand transformed into a saber, chopping directly at his buttocks where the fox tail grew. With my understanding of Hu Yunshan, foxes value their tails extremely much. Losing a tail is like having one's heart ripped out. He would definitely protect his tail, giving me a chance to escape. But just as my saber chopped down and I intended to flip over and flee, the tail wrapped around me broke off and rolled forward along my waist. And from behind the fake Hu Yunshan's buttocks, several more tails grew out, tightly wrapping around my limbs. At the same time, from within the water bed beneath me, countless hands pierced through the bedsheet, frantically clawing at me. Faces emerged, as if screaming silently for help. "He always wanted to play this game, didn't he? He only has one tail, I have many. Some people like nine-tailed foxes, so I'll turn into a nine-tailed one." The fake Hu Yunshan smiled, reaching for the blindfold, gag ball, and 2 red candles nearby. My lips went cold as I opened my mouth to scream, but he immediately shoved the gag ball in. At the same time, he took handcuffs and leg irons from the bedside drawer, using the strength of the tails wrapped around me to cuff my limbs to the bed frame. I lay still, trying to calm myself, wanting to draw on the mountain's energy around here, but it was useless. There was clearly something hidden in this water bed, and it was a special kind. Even Hu Yunshan and I couldn't perceive it. This hotel already had a big problem, isolated from the outside, even unable to distinguish the boundary between yin and yang. "Did you notice your body always craving intimacy when you came here?" The imposter held a pair of scissors, hovering them over my body as if calculating where to cut. I wanted to speak, but my mouth was gagged. I could only mumble, looking at him. He chuckled softly, his fake tails snaking under my clothes, gently stroking my back. The scissors just touched the front of my shirt, about to cut, his eyes flirtatious. Does he do this? Use his tail like this? Does he have as many tails as I do? Just as he was about to cut my shirt, a flaming fox claw shot out from behind him, delivering a mighty blow to his head. The sharp, fiery claw slashed down, severing half of his head. The imposter tried to turn around, but the claw struck again, splitting his body in two, blood gushing out. Hu Yunshan snorted coldly, swung his claws to cut my handcuffs and leg irons, then scooped me up. Looking at the blood-soaked toy fox tails, he snorted contemptuously. Then he kicked the bleeding voodoo doll aside and swung his claw, ripping open the waterbed. A foul-smelling, murky brown liquid immediately gushed out, and amidst the swirling water, a layer of pale grease floated, emitting a peculiar fragrance. Inside the waterbed were 2 swollen, crimson corpses tightly entwined, along with 2 snakes also tightly coiled like ropes. In just a moment, the entire room was filled with this strange, clearly unpleasant, yet strangely alluring fragrance that stirred one's mind. I quickly pulled Hu Yunshan and pointed to the door. "Close the door." The strange smell couldn't escape. I gasped for breath. Hu Yunshan pressed me against the wall, rubbing his hand forcefully on my waist, so hard it felt like he wanted to peel off my skin. Those were fake tails, fake items. I knew what he was paying attention to. After several collaborations with Li Wei, my action of scratching the back of my neck was a secret signal to subtly lure the snake out of its hole. Since I am female and appear easy to exploit, I always succeed as bait. Clearly, the imposter had started to get cocky and babble, and the more cocky he got, the more flaws he revealed. But Hu Yunshan was afraid that another moment's delay would result in my shirt being cut, so he jumped out, wasting a good opportunity. "It can't be." Hu Yunshan rubbed my waist hard twice, whispering, "I'll give you a thorough bath when we get home." Then he looked at the scratch on my wrist, his eyes fierce. "Kim Fong and Gok Lo, it dared to even dream of it. It dreamed of you, not me." I shrunk back, scared by his expression. Clearly, someone intentionally placed this imposter in the hotel, using the lewd and evil energy here to absorb yin and yang essence to nurture this voodoo doll, and even intentionally lured me here, wanting it to absorb my essence to cultivate into a real human. At that time, there would be a Hu Yunshan of flesh and blood. The elevator chimed and Li Wei rushed out. "Man Tin Van," seeing Hu Yunshan, he breathed a sigh of relief and asked me, "How was it? Did you lure it out?" I pushed Hu Yunshan away and whispered in his ear, "It was aimed at you." His pupils contracted, full of confusion and disgust. "I am a Fox Immortal, not a mere rabbit." I pointed downstairs. "Room 2415. Hu Yunshan's eyes immediately filled with hatred. "What's wrong?" Li Wei ran over. "Didn't you say to lure the snake out?" "Not only did we lure out a snake, but we also lured out a lot of interesting things." Hu Yunshan gritted his teeth, pointing into the room. "Go in and see for yourself." Li Wei pushed the door open, immediately retched, quickly slamming the door shut. He leaned against the wall, dry heaving a few times, then made a call. After that, he turned back to us, full of suspicion. "What was that thing?" "Evil magic." I pointed to the other rooms and told Li Wei, "A type of evil magic that incites lust, making people lose control of their desires." Although the hotel was well soundproofed, standing in the corridor, one could still faintly hear some indescribable sounds. Li Wei's expression changed. "Are these rooms arranged on every floor, or is this just one central magic formation? It must be just one, the other rooms probably don't have it right." He spoke disjointedly, pointing downstairs, almost crying. "One bed, two bodies, I don't know how many years they've been soaking. If every floor has two, imagine how big this case would be." "Let's go down and cut them open to find out." Hu Yunshan's face was cold. He took my hand and walked straight to the elevator. Room 2415 was where the most incidents occurred. Waiting for Li Wei to call the forensics team and contact the lobby manager, they cut open the 2.8-meter diameter waterbed. Everyone present was horrified. The bloated, crimson corpses, though dead, were still tightly embracing each other, snakes coiled around them, hair floating out with the water, along with the stench of decaying bodies mixed with the peculiar fragrance. Even the forensic pathologist couldn't stand it and had to rush to the toilet to vomit. This block of the 24th floor is not open to guests. The water beds in other rooms also need to be cut open and checked, but due to a shortage of forensic personnel, they have to do it one room at a time, so they haven't opened yet. The other floors will have to wait until tomorrow morning when guests check out before they can be checked. Hearing Li Wei's report, I frowned, pointing at the bodies in the waterbed. "They're exposed like this, and you're still letting people indulge on these beds. When they find out there are dead bodies hidden in the waterbeds, they'll be scared stiff." Thinking of myself having slept on that waterbed soaking human corpses and snakes, mixed with aphrodisiac corpse oil, I wished I could go home and shower 3 times, scrubbing off a layer of skin. "With so many people in the hotel, shouldn't it be evacuated immediately?" "They won't know." Li Wei looked up at me. This time, in front of Hu Yunshan, he pulled out a cigarette, lit it, and took a deep drag. "We've found the root cause. The haunting is definitely caused by these specially preserved bodies in the waterbeds. You two go back first." "Won't know" means they intend to cover it up. They must be afraid of causing public panic. "This hotel is full of local VIPs. Who else would spend money here?" I pulled Hu Yunshan. "Let's go." As I turned, a tiny bloody handprint suddenly appeared on the wall. The faint cries of a child echoed, and I could vaguely hear Wang Qingqing's hysterical screams from room 2415, where the police were examining. On the gold-patterned wallpaper, countless crimson faces flashed by. Hands reached out from within the walls, just like when I communicated with spirits in the bathtub, but not to grab me, but to point towards the door of room 2415. I instinctively turned back, saw Jin Chengguang's shadow flash across the half-open door, then my jacket pocket felt heavy. Reaching into my pocket, I immediately touched a room card and the check that Li Wei had just confiscated as evidence. A thought suddenly sparked in my mind. I pulled Hu Yunshan and nodded to Li Wei. "All right, you all take your time." And we waited for the elevator. The sophisticated woman from earlier also came out, accompanied by the lobby manager, who was bowing and smiling flatteringly. She was Jin Mengyan, our general manager, he explained, intentionally giving her full name to distinguish her from Jin Chengguang. "Hello." She extended her hand towards me, her face sorrowful. "I never expected such a thing to happen at the hotel. We are investigating the water bed supplier and will provide information to the police. To ensure the safety of the hotel, and given the recent haunting rumors, I would like to invite you, Man Tin Van, to stay and perform a spiritual ceremony for us, if that's possible." After speaking, she placed both hands on her waist and bowed to me gracefully. In just a few simple sentences, she shifted all responsibility to the water bed supplier, expressed that the hotel would not close but would not shirk responsibility, and instead passed the difficult ball to me. Her attitude, neither arrogant nor fawning, left no room for anger. If I refused to perform the ceremony, it meant I didn't want to help her solve the problem, or I was incompetent. If I performed the ceremony, I would have to stay, and who knew what might happen? If ghosts remained after the ceremony, it would naturally be due to my lack of skill. But whether in the lobby or the elevator, there had never been any sign that she was the owner of this hotel. I had never imagined that the owner of the Jin Ye Hotel, famous for its round water beds and all sorts of toys, would be such a young, intellectual woman. A lump of anger stuck in my throat, wanting to explode, but looking at that elegant smile, I couldn't vent it. I had to yank my hand, which Hu Yunshan was tightly holding, free, and let out a cold snort. Indeed, as soon as my hand pulled away, her eyes, which had been looking straight at me, darted towards Hu Yunshan. After confirming that Jin Mengyan could see Hu Yunshan, I sneered, "All right, but I wouldn't dare sleep on that round water bed anymore. General Manager Jin, please arrange another room for me." Hu Yunshan immediately hooked his arm around mine, his fox tail nudging my back. Signal not to mess around. When his tail gently nudged me, Jin Mengyan's eyes twitched slightly. I wrapped my arm around his back, grabbing Hu Yunshan's tail, pretending to be rubbing his waist, and said with a smile to Jin Mengyan, "Captain Li won't let us stay here anymore, so we'll have to leave first. For the spiritual ceremony, General Manager Jin, please come to my shrine tomorrow. After all this," I pointed to the other rooms, smiling with a money-hungry expression. "There are dead bodies in all the water beds. Our profession charges per case. How much for one body, how much for 100 bodies, it's definitely different. Using human remains to communicate with spirits, wrapping them tightly with snake bodies to lure evil energy and ignite primal essence. That kind of extreme pleasure, no wonder it's addictive. Sleeping in this hotel can lead to ultimate ecstasy, no wonder rooms are booked every day. But to achieve a great effect, there can't be just one magic formation. Every bed must have such an evil magic formation. Hundreds of rooms, 200 to 300 bodies. Where did Jin Mengyan find so many people? No wonder the boundary between yin and yang couldn't be distinguished. This hotel itself is hell. She could see Hu Yunshan, so there was no need to think further. She was the one who created that voodoo doll. Seeing my mercenary, lust-filled expression, Jin Mengyan glanced at Hu Yunshan behind me with disdain, but her face still maintained an elegant, intellectual smile. "All right then, please Man Tin Van, come down to the staff lounge first. There are normal beds there, not water beds, rest assured." Her attitude was still very good. Her pleasing face made it impossible to criticize her. The lobby manager pointed to Li Wei, told Jin Mengyan to go over there, then turned and led us down to the staff lounge. In the elevator, I glanced at the lobby manager, who was trembling as he pressed the floor button, and chuckled dismissively. I reached out to cover the control panel, sliding the master key card in front of him. Jin Chengguang is dead. His card must be useless now, right? The manager's hand trembled uncontrollably, sweat pouring from his forehead as if he'd taken a bath, but his eyes remained fixed on the card, his head bowed in silence. Sometimes humans are even more terrifying than ghosts. The haunted hotel, despite all the disturbances, didn't kill anyone. On the contrary, the ones who died were Jin Chengguang and the sorcerers who came to catch ghosts. When there were ghosts, the manager could still speak, still knew how to plead with me. Now, he was silent as a stone, not daring to utter a word. I'll go upstairs to get my luggage first. Seeing the manager trembling so much he was almost writing with his fingers, I put the card away. I pressed the 25th floor button and moved aside. The staff lounge is on 3B, right? I'll get my luggage and come down immediately. You go arrange things first. 3B was actually the 4th floor, avoiding the unlucky number 4. There was also no 13th floor, but at 12B the elevator went up very quickly. Just as I was about to step out, the lobby manager suddenly looked up at me and whispered, "Man Tin Van, have you ever considered that the first haunting was intentional by those ghosts? General Manager Jin knew about it, that's why he was killed." I nodded to him, giving a soft In other words, Jin Chengguang wasn't killed by a ghost, but by someone who wanted to silence him after he discovered something. The key lay in the check he gave me. Everything started from the appearance of the fake Hu Yunshan. Dead, pushing open the door to room 2515, the warning tape was still there. The human and snake bodies in the waterbed had been removed. Even the voodoo doll that was split in two had disappeared. On the floor, there was only a puddle of blood and spilled preservative solution, nothing else. Hu Yunshan looked at the handcuffs on the bed frame and whispered to me, "I've already asked Old Min. He only made one voodoo doll for me 18 years ago with my consent." Inside it had a drop of my vital blood and a tuft of my protective fur. "Earlier, you looked at her without blinking, so you must know her." I pulled my luggage out of the wardrobe. "I didn't know it was her." Hu Yunshan quickly held my hand to explain, "I never expected her to turn out like this. That voodoo doll back then was to stop her from crying. Who knew she would become this insane?" I sighed, taking out the room card, and the check Jin Chengguang had slipped into my pocket. The check was dated 2014, 1 year before the Jin Ye Hotel was completed. The signature, though stylized, could vaguely be recognized as Jin Mengyan's name, not Jin Chengguang's. 10 years ago, I was 14. I vaguely remembered a sensational case in the city that year. At that time, I was in middle school, and Hu Yunshan always picked me up from evening classes. But when I got home, Grandma would be waiting at the door, holding a soul-guiding lamp, afraid something would happen to me. In the 7th lunar month that year, Grandma ordered a cartload of paper money and offerings to be burned, but didn't let me go along. She only came back around 3 or 4 a.m., sitting by my bed, sighing deeply. Unable to stand the strong smell of corpses and incense, I dragged my luggage outside, closed the door, and stood in a secluded corner, researching the old case. 10 years ago, this place wasn't called Jin Ye Hotel, but Xuan Cheng Hotel. Just before its topping out ceremony, during the hot 7th lunar month, the hotel paid out half a year's wages and extra meal allowances, telling everyone to work hard to finish early. The workers happily gathered to eat and drink, even calling for prostitutes. It was said they were having too much fun. Someone unknown used scrap wood to build a bonfire, and then the entire temporary container housing area caught fire, burning all night. Because the accident was so massive, the entire scene was cordoned off. No one knew exactly how many people died. But the red light district near the train station was rumored to have lost half its population. The hotel later changed investors, but occasionally groups of people would gather at the construction site looking for relatives, only to leave after a few days. Looking at this check, it was probably Jin Mengyan's compensation money. And why wasn't it converted to cash, but still kept as a check? Perhaps the families were unwilling to accept it. I held Jin Chengguang's master key card, pointing upstairs to Hu Yunshan. "Let's go to the rooftop suite and see." He had always wanted to give me this card. It was probably due to authority issues that he couldn't use it. That's why I intentionally called out the lobby manager by name in the elevator. Indeed, this time, using the master key card, we could swipe the elevator up to the rooftop. As soon as I stepped out of the elevator, a strange aura enveloped me. Jin Chengguang appeared at the end of the corridor, pointing to a room and signaling for us to enter. He even intentionally walked towards us, but as he moved, his face showed pain and he vanished. Jin Mengyan must have a way to control these spirits, otherwise she wouldn't dare let them roam freely in the hotel. Hu Yunshan snorted coldly, took the room card from my hand, and led me to swipe open the door to that room. As soon as we pushed the door open, our eyes met countless paintings of Hu Yunshan in various poses and forms, as well as figures, models, and life-size dolls of him in all his manifestations. Some wore ancient costumes, some had 9 tails growing from their backs, some exposed 8-pack abs, some were completely naked. There were wild ones, seductive ones, ethereal fairy-like ones, truly all types to satisfy any desire. In the bedroom, a giant glass tank filled with a pale red solution was soaking something. Inside was the voodoo doll that Hu Yunshan had just split in two. Even some foxtails were still attached. I didn't know what this medicinal water was that could heal the voodoo doll's split body. Only dimly visible on the glass were carved talismans, probably to imprison it. The fake Hu Yunshan, with a red scar running across its face, its flirtatious eyes blinking at the real Hu Yunshan, occasionally tilted its head to observe. After a while, its face showed a serious expression identical to Hu Yunshan's, its eyes also filled with anger. HMPH? Hu Yunshan immediately snorted coldly, about to step forward, but I quickly pulled him back. Just then, Jin Mengyan's voice rang out from behind. It learns fast, doesn't it? Even better than the original. Hu Yunshan quickly turned to look at Jin Mengyan from head to toe for a long time, his face full of regret. Jin Mengyan ignored his appraisal, chuckling, "Long time no see, Fox Immortal brother." 18 years ago, when I was only 6 years old, Grandma took on a missing person case. A high school boarding student, returning home for the holidays to ask for more living expenses, argued with her family and ran back to school. Her parents, too angry, didn't call the school to inquire. In those days, boarding high schools had 70 to 80 students per class, with immense exam pressure. Students only focused on studying, so no one noticed a missing person, thinking she was just staying home a few extra days. It was only when the teacher discovered her absence 3 days later during a regular test that they called home. The family searched tirelessly, reported to the police, but found no clues. Finally, the girl's grandmother came crying to my grandma, who was then scolded by the girl's parents, saying, "What era is this to still believe in such things?" Because she had been missing for several days, and finding people wasn't Grandma's specialty, she told me to take Hu Yunshan to mobilize rats and snakes across the city to find her. It was an abandoned factory in the suburbs. A dozen girls, covered in mud, were chained like dogs, wearing muzzles so they couldn't make a sound. As we approached, one girl's face was swollen like a bun, her whole body covered in injuries, one arm and one leg broken. Even with the muzzle, she snarled from her throat at us. In those days, the economy developed rapidly, and many dark corners of society extended their tentacles to these flower buds. The girl Grandma was looking for, because the traffickers wanted to sell her for a high price, had not been sexually abused, only beat. But the snarling girl, it was said, had been confined there for at least several months, witnessing how many other girls were taken away for not complying, beaten, and had their limbs broken, and were frequently dragged out and humiliated in front of the other girls by those despicable traffickers, both to release their lust and to kill the chicken to scare the monkeys. Despite being beaten so severely, she still didn't submit, but her mind was traumatized, half-crazed, snarling instinctively at anyone she saw. People who suffer such extreme trauma often awaken some abnormal abilities. She could see Hu Yunshan and other immortals. Finally, Hu Yunshan couldn't bear to see her pain and used the Fox tribe's charm techniques to repeatedly heal her, helping her forget that terrible memory. Later, she recovered but only trusted Hu Yunshan. Even Master Bai wasn't allowed near her. Whenever she was away from Hu Yunshan, she would wake up startled, harm herself, and scream terribly. Hu Yunshan was naturally impatient but deeply compassionate towards her situation and eventually couldn't break free. So, he asked old Min to make a voodoo doll to keep her company. To make it lifelike, he even pulled out a tuft of his protective fur and added a drop of his vital blood. Afterwards, her condition stabilized and improved. Her family found her and took her home. At that time, I was too young. Hu Yunshan was afraid something would happen to me, so he always protected me closely. Gradually, I forgot about this. I never expected that 18 years later, that voodoo doll would almost gain sentience. This surely made many immortals green with envy. Even more unexpected was that the girl who used to cower at the sight of people had turned into this. Jin Mengyan, seeing that we remembered, still maintained an intellectual smile. She looked at me with the eyes of an elder. "Tin Van, you've grown so big. When I met you, you were just a tiny tot like this. You were so majestic back then. sitting on the back of a glowing golden fox immortal, your tiny face full of seriousness, commanding thousands of rats and snakes to swarm and bite those scum to death. Majestic and formidable like a female general. Jin Mengyan walked to the wine cabinet, poured 3 glasses of red wine, and offered them to us. Seeing no one accept, she took a glass herself and drank. Later, you helped Guo Mingsheng resolve some land disputes. It was from him that I learned you are a mountain spirit, nurtured by the dragon's pulse of this mountain range. The essence of mountains and rivers gathered is called a ghost, but it is actually a god, governing everything in this mountainous region, including the so-called immortals. So what? I took a step forward, wanting to ask Jin Mengyan what she really wanted, but Hu Yunshan pressed my shoulder, holding me back. He said to Jin Mengyan, "Do you want to devour a god to become an immortal?" My head buzzed. I looked at Hu Yunshan in confusion. Devour a god? She practices flying head giant, the flying head curse. Hu Yunshan pointed at Jin Mengyan's neck, saying in a deep voice, "She has turned all the corpses and ghosts in this hotel into her ghost slaves, her minions. Although we came here, she actually wants to devour you. Indeed, your mountain spirit is still very naive. You know nothing and still rely on great Fox Immortal." Jin Mengyan clapped her hands, chuckling dismissively at me. "Did you think Jin Chengguang sought you out because he wanted to voice his grievances? And those other ghost bodies, did you think they wanted to warn you of something? Haha, you don't understand humans and you don't understand ghosts either." Jin Mengyan, though triumphant, still maintained her elegant, intellectual smile. She looked at me coldly. "Do you truly think you're a god? Are you enjoying yourself?" Attacked by surprise, I was stunned, but looking at Hu Yunshan next to me and the voodoo doll locked in the glass tank, I burst into a contemptuous laugh. "If you want to steal a fox spirit, then steal one. With your beauty, what man wouldn't fall for you? Why resort to such petty jealousy? He doesn't see me. I've never been in his eyes." Jin Mengyan suddenly went berserk. She drained her glass of wine, pointing the glass at Hu Yunshan. 2 years ago, I tried every way to appear before him, hoping for a chance encounter, but he never looked straight at me even once. I even intentionally appeared at Li Wei's crime scenes to get his attention, but he looked at the dead body more than he looked at me. HMPH. Jin Mengyan grew angrier as she spoke, flicking her tongue against her cheek, taking off her outer coat. "I thought you were gone, and I could seize the opportunity to step in, but he still wouldn't glance at me. With this appearance," she caressed her silk dress, her hand sliding along her body. "My measurements and proportions are perfect, and it's all real. My skin," she pulled down her collar, stroked it forcefully. "My skin is like congealed fat, a mere breath could tear it, a touch would leave a red mark. There's no man I can't sleep with, even women I handle perfectly. And there's no male fox spirit I can't catch." She angrily pointed at the pile of fox tails soaking with the voodoo doll in the glass tank. "How do you think these tails were chopped off? It was while they were mating with me when they weren't paying attention. Oh, you won't find those fox immortals. My fox immortal brother ate them all. He's almost a real human now." Jin Mengyan's face was grim. She sighed, seemingly feeling bored. "I thought all fox spirits were the same, but sleeping with them eventually gets boring. I still want the fox immortal brother who gave me his tail back then. I put in so much effort, but you didn't care. So I had to create a fox immortal brother who would listen to me, one that belongs only to me." Jin Mengyan's face was filled with a smile as she spoke. I felt something was wrong and quickly pushed Hu Yunshan away, raising my hand to smash the glass tank, but it was too late. I only heard a crack, and the voodoo doll in the bloody water rushed out. The fox tails behind it lashed out, immediately wrapping tightly around Hu Yunshan. "Careful!" I was about to save Hu Yunshan when I felt the 4 surrounding walls suddenly press inward. The room, which had been gloomy and cold, suddenly erupted in raging flames. From within the sea of fire, grotesque faces lunged towards me. I quickly forced a smile, intending to activate the mountain's energy, but the hotel's magic formation had isolated it. My hand seals and incantations were completely useless against these ghost slaves. Jin Mengyan's cackling laughter echoed. "Man Tin Van, you're a mountain god, protecting the peace of one region. They died right on your mountain years ago, dying so tragically. How could a mountain god like you not save them? You and Hu Yunshan found us back then, but do you know how many survived 18 years later? Everyone but me is dead. Someone like you doesn't deserve to be a god, so let me do it instead. Then I'll announce to the outside that your spell failed." Sudden death. Jin Mengyan spoke as she lunged from the sea of fire towards me, but it wasn't her whole body, only a head, below which dangled a long string of intestines and a stomach emitting black gas. No wonder her face showed good fortune, but her neck had a dark aura. It turned out she was practicing flying head giant. Seeing that head about to bite my neck, I suddenly raised my hand and shouted, "Come here." The moment the words left my mouth, the wall that was pressing in collapsed with a thud, and the fire extinguished instantly. Countless bleached bones fell from within the walls, clattering to the ground. With one hand, I grabbed Jin Mengyan's hair, with the other, I squeezed the attached esophagus beneath her head. "Why are you practicing these dark arts? You won't escape. When I was doing my nails, I already knew you were a mountain spirit." I used human bones to create a formation that isolates the dragon's pulse earth energy. These ghost slaves will devour you. Jin Mengyan, with her head in my hand, looked at me with disbelief, but her mouth still mumbled incantations. Even in this situation, she maintained her elegant, intellectual demeanor. The pile of white bones on the ground still rattled, as if wanting to reassemble into a complete body. I stared intently into Jin Mengyan's eyes, which gleamed with a strange light, gave a cold laugh, and swiped my hand across her eyes. "Ah!" she screamed miserably. From her eyes, tiny glass fragments, like grains of sand, were wiped out by me. No wonder she looked beautiful no matter how one looked. So it was glass giant, glass talismans. Jin Mengyan was indeed as resilient as she was back then. After screaming, even with blood flowing from both eyes, she still opened her mouth to chant, but after only 2 sentences, Master Hui, shaking dust off himself, crawled out from the rubble of the wall. He stood upright like a human, clasped his hands to me. "Man Tin Van, you're late. Drag these bones outside, throw a few pieces in each room. I don't believe this hotel won't close then," I commanded Master Hui. He immediately chirped a few times. From within the walls, swarms of rats scurried out, dragging the bones back into the walls, escaping through the ventilation ducts. "You're seeking your own death. This hotel doesn't belong to me alone. Haha, do you know who the man I was with tonight is?" Jin Mengyan was still trying to turn her head, but I unceremoniously threw her head far away. "Man Tin Van," Jin Mengyan's long esophagus contracted, and she shrieked, opening her mouth as if to spit something at me. I looked at her, her eyes bleeding, filled with hatred, and truly couldn't understand. She knew I was a mountain spirit, the head of all immortals. Master Hui had also made it in here, yet she still deliberately provoked me. I waved my hand, and from her wide-open mouth, sand and dirt unexpectedly spewed out, then slowly buried her. Green sprouts began to emerge on her face. On her gradually stiffening face, she still wore a smile, glancing towards the foxtailed fluff being tightly wrapped. In a flash, she turned into a pile of dirt covered in vines and green grass. It was only then that I turned to look at the foxtailed fluff. As I was about to reach out to pull it away, it suddenly separated. 2 identical Hu Yunshans stood before me, both haughtily spitting out fox fur from their mouths. "Man Tin Van, are you okay?" One looked at me worriedly, quickly rushing forward as if to shield me. I let out a cold snort. The one opposite immediately opened his mouth. A stream of fire spewed out, instantly incinerating the other. A sizzling sound echoed, and flames erupted fiercely. "Phew!" Hu Yunshan spat again, expelling the remaining fox fur from his mouth. "Lost a tuft of my protective fur?" Without Hu Yunshan's protective fur, that voodoo doll was just a wax statue, worthless. No matter how much essence it absorbed, it was useless. The voodoo doll watched its body burn, then turned to look at me and Hu Yunshan, its face showing extreme sorrow. Then it looked towards the pile of dirt covered in green vines and staggered towards it, but after only 2 steps, its legs melted and half an arm fell off. It still clung on, crawling towards the pile of dirt. I sighed, waved my hand, and vines from the pile of dirt reached out, pulling it towards it. Just as it lay prostrate on the pile of dirt, it turned back to look at me. "Why did you only act now? Why didn't you care about her, save her before?" But 18 years ago, hadn't Hu Yunshan and I already saved Jin Mengyan? Just then outside, there was a loud crash. Li Wei kicked open the room door, holding a gun. Seeing that we were unharmed, he breathed a sigh of relief. Earlier, when I heard things collapsing, I immediately wanted to rush up, but the hotel was crawling with rats. "I've already sealed off the hotel, you 2 go first." "Why seal off the hotel? What about causing public panic?" From the corridor, a calm male voice echoed. Li Wei turned to look, immediately fell silent, then quickly turned to block the door, shielding me and Hu Yunshan. His hand behind his back waved, signaling us to leave quickly. Hu Yunshan immediately waved his hand, embraced me, and made us both invisible. As we left, I tilted my head back to look. That man was the same man Jin Mengyan had linked arms with in the lobby. Judging by Li Wei's attitude and Jin Mengyan's words, this man's influence was enormous. Hu Yunshan held me, and we went down via the emergency staircase. After a few turns, in a dark corner of the staircase, we met a female ghost, covered in blood, holding a baby still with its umbilical cord. On her wrist were deep cuts, exposing bone. I didn't know this female ghost, but I knew the baby in her arms. Seeing her, Hu Yunshan couldn't help but snort coldly. A ghost slave aiding the enemy. Sister Jin is a good person. She held the infant ghost, staring at me grimly. She said, "You're a mountain god, but where were you when Sister Jin suffered? When I was raped, when I was called names and pointed at for my pregnant belly, where were you? Sister Jin only wants to help me. Those people are all dying." I glanced at the wounds on the female ghost's hand, saying in a deep voice, "Humans commit evil. On what grounds do you blame gods and spirits? You ask me where I was. I am a mountain spirit, and you are already a ghost. Why don't you think about avenging yourself? Those who raped you have been to this hotel, haven't they?" I chuckled dismissively. "You are truly pitiful, but you had the courage to kill your child, the courage to commit suicide, yet you don't have the courage to face those who harmed you. Instead, you jump out and criticize me." Li Wei said, "The police's DNA database is incomplete, and they couldn't find the perpetrator." I didn't know whether to believe this, but in witchcraft, as long as there's a blood relation, the child's father can be found. Jin Mengyan lured the female ghost and her abandoned child to the hotel, surely wanting her to take revenge herself. What was the result? Let alone that she died a year ago, and the haunting only became prominent half a month ago. Why hadn't she acted yet? Jin Mengyan, in 18 years, managed to keep a voodoo doll alive, operate such a large hotel, raise so many ghost slaves, almost killed both Hu Yunshan and me, and she, a ghost for a year now, still only knows how to cry. The female ghost's face immediately turned pale green. She tried to lunge at me, but Hu Yunshan glared, and she recoiled in fear. As we turned the corner of the staircase, her sobbing cries echoed behind us. It wasn't until we left the hotel that the sky outside was already faintly bright. As soon as we stepped out, Master Hui was standing at the corner of the wall, waving to us. He led us to a dark spot and whispered, "The police are chasing us away. This matter can't be blown up anymore. Jin Mengyan has prepared a backup plan. The man she brought into the hotel definitely has even greater power, and I don't know what she's plotting." Hu Yunshan snorted coldly, "You harm others, just ignore it." Then he held me, tired, and said in a deep voice, "I'm so sleepy, let's go home." I thought for a moment, then told Master Hui, "You help me find out what Jin Mengyan has experienced in the past 18 years. Upon returning home, Hu Yunshan held me and fell asleep, his arms and legs wrapped tightly around me, his foxtail also tightly wrapped around my waist, not letting go. It was noon the next day when I woke up. Master Hui came to report, his face also showing sympathy. 18 years ago, when Jin Mengyan was brought home, although her broken leg had been reconnected, the scars on her body had not fully healed. Coupled with being missing for several months, relatives and neighbors all knew about it. Seeing her condition, there were naturally all sorts of rumors about what she had endured. Then, seeing her constantly holding Hu Yunshan's voodoo doll, and with a younger brother at home, her parents feared they would have to support her for life. Coupled with the world's tongues, both pitying and gloating, they persuaded her to get married just 1 month after she returned home. At that time, she was still haunted and afraid of men, but her family not only lacked sympathy, but also forced her into various blind dates and encounters, saying that she would get used to it with more exposure. Finally, unable to bear it any longer, she took her voodoo doll and ran away, going to work with a kind aunt from her village. But that aunt took her to a place called a store, which was actually forcing her to take drugs. She was drugged into a stupor, wanting to run, but the aunt slapped her to the ground, saying, "Who knows how many men you've slept with already, you're ruined below and still pretending to be a chaste heroine." Years ago, she was kidnapped to be sold into these dens or into remote mountains. Now, because someone kindly took her to work, she walked right into the trap herself. She also prayed countless times to Hu Yunshan with her voodoo doll, but it was just a doll. Those dens had plenty of ways to handle girls. They stopped beating them, as damaging them would reduce their value. They only used drugs, all sorts of corpse oils, and addictive substances. Jin Mengyan's character was resilient. She gradually retracted her claws and became docile. She endured 3 years there, then met a client from Thailand, getting exposed to witchcraft. She began learning from the smallest talismans, practicing until she mastered flying head giant, and using witchcraft, she successively married 3 old husbands. In just a few years, she accumulated considerable wealth and connections. 12 years ago, to help some people, she began building the current Jin Ye Hotel, and from then on, changed her surname to Jin. The female student who gave birth in the toilet and committed suicide was probably due to empathy. She saw herself in that female student and thus lured the ghost to the hotel. Master Hui placed 4 newspapers in front of me. One reported the female student raped in the toilet, another reported the girl giving birth and then committing suicide. The last one was from 10 years ago. 2 female students jogging at night went missing. 3 days later, their bodies were found by the river. They were raped and murdered. Newspapers back then reported quite realistically. The area where they went missing while jogging at night was the Xuancheng Hotel area, which is now the Jin Ye Hotel. The newspaper now wrote, General Manager Jin Mengyan of Xuancheng Hotel went to the construction site to question, but the workers all had alibis. Finally, General Manager Jin compensated each female student's family 280,000 yuan as consolation. The last newspaper was from 1 month after the Xuancheng Hotel construction camp caught fire and all workers perished. The person in charge of construction, Jin Mengyan, was held responsible and no longer involved in hotel operations. I took out the check from 10 years ago and looked at the numbers on it, suddenly finding it ironic. This check wasn't compensation for the workers, but for the families of the female students raped and murdered by the workers, which is why it wasn't converted into cash. Jin Mengyan blamed me for not being worthy of being a god. She wanted to become a god. If she hadn't used the wrong methods, she truly had enough capability. And I was just a mountain spirit. Even my mountain had been leveled. I had to rely on Hu Yunshan's careful protection to be born again. Humans commit evil. I truly don't have the strength to manage, nor the heart to manage. I let out a sigh to Master Hui, saying softly, That day, on the rooftop of Jin Ye Hotel, there was another man. You must have met him. Kill him. Master Hui was stunned. That's not good. This isn't our responsibility. How about you find third sister Chang, the snake spirit? She hates this type the most. Let her release a venomous snake to bite him to death. No one will know, not God nor ghost. That's better. I thought for a moment and said, Forget it, I have a way. 3 days later, that man appeared on the news. After a list of titles was a brief line. Died suddenly due to a medical condition, followed by a summary of his biography and a list of dignitaries attending his funeral. But I knew he died in bed, just like the fake voodoo doll and Jin Chengguang, dying tragically and disgracefully. Hu Yunshan saw that I was still unhappy, so he drove me to the riverside to enjoy the breeze, admire the night view, and eat barbecue. As the car passed by Jin Ye Hotel, the lights on the top floor were still brightly shining, splendid and magnificent,